USA in your America is asking you to call. Drive you through the USA. America's the greatest land of all. On a highway or a road along a levee, performance is sweeter, nothing can beat her. Life is completer in a... So make a date today to see the USA. See it in your...
In the 1930s, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt addressed the nation through a series of radio broadcasts known as the Higherside Chatters. His aim was to reassure the common man that our society would recover from its troubled times. But we're far from 1930, and I deal with a different kind of fire. For a new era of worldly frustration, we offer a fresh conversation. I'm Greg Carlwood, and these are the Higherside Chatters.
Well, pack your bowls and smoke your pulls, people, because today we're going to talk to a man that I would consider a supreme authority on a type of object I occasionally hear referenced in 2012 prophecies, as well as stories about Atlantis. I've seen him in Stargate SG-1, Indiana Jones movies, and Dan Aykroyd's Liquor Cabinet. If you're still guessing or you didn't think to read the title of the show, I'm talking about Crystal Skulls, people. And Joshua Shapiro, he's been on the case for over 25 years. Josh, thanks for being on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Greg. How about yourself today?
Never better. You know, lately I've been kind of drifting away from your typical Alex Jones Illuminati type stuff and getting into the more metaphysical, cosmic, hidden knowledge side of things. And you don't get too far without hearing about energy and crystals. And the real Papa Bear here is the crystal skulls. So tell me what we're talking about when we say crystal skulls and how they become such a big part of your life.
Okay. Well, as the term implies, we're speaking about a skull close to a human bone skull that's made out of quartz crystal. Was originally crystal skulls were defined as. Now crystal skulls are any type of skull that's kind of done in a similar fashion, made from different type of gemstones.
Right.
But I need to share with your listeners, although there are people who have great affinity for all the different types of crystal skulls that are carved now.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, I feel the strongest affinity for quartz crystals. So that's kind of what I specialize in. Now, I specialize in that probably because, as you were talking about, related to the concept of energy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I believe each person is a unique note in God's infinite symphony, is a unique vibration. And so each one of us is going to have our own set of unique things that we feel a vibrational affinity for. So
Okay.
This is the only way that I can try to explain for myself why quartz crystals and the quartz skulls. Now, I also think it has to do with, if you go into the paranormal, the idea of reincarnation, that there have been other lifetimes that I've had where I have worked directly with the crystal skulls. So it's kind of like a continuation of where I left off, wherever that was. You know, it could have been in Atlantis or Egypt or the Mayans. There's a lot of different cultures that talk about these crystal skulls. So as far as where I've been with it, when I first got involved in the spiritual, the metaphysical, it wasn't my intention that I was going to be working with crystal skulls.
Right.
I kind of came upon it when I met one back in 1983, an amethyst crystal skull, which today people call Ami, and that comes from a name given to this particular crystal skull from one of its former guardians. He was the only one that really understood it and saw it as a special artifact that was here to assist humanity and to assist people that it met, that the skull was meeting for, like healing and so on. And that's kind of like when I had contact with this skull. First I was just looking at a picture of it, and I had like an inner earthquake going on inside of my body. And then when I finally met the skull, I felt an energetic connection to it, and that energetic connection has been with me since that time. So sometimes what happens is you're going to have an experience with something that you have no intention of, you don't plan it,
Sure.
but it comes up, and then it's kind of like you have to make a decision. Am I going to do something with this? Am I going to pursue it? Is it crazy and I should forget about it? Well, obviously, when I met this particular skull, it struck a note inside of me, and I felt there was something important about it. And I had no clue where it would take me or what I would be doing all these years, but I just had this sensing inside, and that's never died, that the crystal skull are one of the ancient tools, let's say from prior civilizations, that are returning now to help humanity create a planet of peace and harmony. That's been my feeling since 1983 when I was looking at the picture of this crystal skull called Ami.
Nice. Now, does that have anything to do with, I've heard of vaguely the legend of the 13 crystal skulls. Are you familiar with that legend, and why 13, and where did that start?
Yes, I am familiar with the legend, but first I think what we should do is talk about the number 13, or 1 surrounded by 12.
Okay.
There are many people who believe that our solar system actually has 12 planets that go around the sun. Now, I think the scientists are pretty clear, based upon the orbit of Pluto. They can sense, they can predict if there's another mass that's having an effect on a planet.
Right.
You can kind of see it, and I think there are quite a few scientists now who are pretty sure there might be another planet beyond Pluto.
I've heard that.
It might be a very small one. Some people have called it Vulcan. So that would give us 10. The other 2 planets could possibly be in front of Mercury in the corona of the sun, where they would not be visible to the naked eye.
Really?
Yes. And this idea actually comes from an early UFO contactee. Let's see if I can remember his name. This is the thing. I'm getting on 57, going on 58, and I'm finding that I'm starting to forget the names of things. Let's see. Other Tongues, Other Flesh was the name of the book where this was talked about. George Hunt Williamson, that's the name of the author. I actually had 1 letter correspondence with him, and then I never heard from him again, and he kind of disappeared. Anyway, George Hunt Williamson was the one I remember reading in this book, Other Tongues, Other Flesh, where he said that sometimes in the sun you can see what looks like flares, and he thinks that those flares could be the light coming from these 2 planets, because according to what he said, and according to another gentleman that I met in Portland, Oregon, even before I met the Crystal Skulls, when I was kind of traveling on faith, Ed Palmer was his name. And he also was another one of these guys considered to be early UFO contactee. He was talking about not only that he was an exchange baby, meaning that there was his parents, the child they had was given to some extraterrestrials, and apparently this race looked human-like, although he said when he was, X-rayed, there were some things about his physical body which don't totally match the normal body of a regular human.
I've never heard this. Who is this?
Ed Palmer was his name.
Ed Palmer.
Yeah, he was in I think he was by Portland, Oregon, or Eugene, Oregon, one of those 2.
And he was he's basically claiming alien origins, that he was swapped at birth?
Yeah, that his parents were extraterrestrial and exchanged him for the Earth baby. Because when I went into his house, on a wall, he had another solar system, and he said, this is the one I came from, with totally different planets than what we have here. Anyway, he had a book he wrote about where he said, this is how planets are created. He said, they start as a gaseous substance that's in rotation. The heavier particles form the crust of the planet, and the lighter particles form a mini sun that's at the center. So he says that every planet is created this way, So the Earth, the Moon, etc. So if this is true, it would mean the light from the inner sun coming through an opening at the poles of these planets that would be hid by the corona of our sun, which would be seen like, I think they call it like a valence or something, where there's, kind of like a light that comes out of the sun or something.
Okay.
Could actually be these two planets that are hid by that light, giving us 12. So that's what he speculated on.
So there's a skull to represent each planet in our solar system?
No. From the theories that were given, and this mostly comes through indigenous people, there was one person, Harley Swiftier, and again, I don't know if this is true. I just have this sensing that there's something about the number 12 surrounding 1.
Right.
Because it comes up in many of our world religions. It could come up
Jesus
and
the 12 apostles.
Exactly. And in Judaism, which I was brought up, it's the Levite and the 12 tribes of Israel, with the Levites were the priests. Right. So this 12 and 1 has something to do with the evolution of humanity and, I guess, the reality that we live in. So the possibility that there could be 12 crystal skulls surrounded by a 13th one, this is the theory that comes up from some of these indigenous cultures. Another gentleman that we interviewed, this was for the first book that I was involved in with the crystal skulls, which was co-authored by F.R. Nick Nasarino, Sandra Bowen, and myself, called Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, released in 1989. And there was this gentleman that we met in Sacramento, California, who he claims he was taken on board spacecraft, that he went into the inner Earth, which would support the theory I told you about this inner sun, and then there's people living on the inner surface of the Earth, and then there's people living on the outer surface of the Earth.
I've heard a lot about the inner Earth theory. It's actually pretty interesting, but the thing that gets me about it is I just can't imagine that if there was another race living inside the Earth, that they wouldn't want to come to the surface, that they would be comfortable being inside like that.
Well, there's a book that I just finished reading called Telos. I think Diane Robinson or something like this. She was receiving mental telepathic communication from people that lived inside the Earth, and also people that live underneath the ground, like in between the outer and inner surface. So there's kind of like cities, like in Mount Shasta. Now, I believe in this because the first time I went to Mount Shasta, what happened to me is I just kind of went there on faith, and I didn't have very much money with me. And all I did when I first arrived and I was let off is I kind of walked towards the mountain. And I'm sure it was quite far, but then it was like something knocked me out. Like I went unconscious, but there was an intelligence that was behind this unconscious. And the only sensing that I have is I had contact with some kind of people that are linked to Mount Shasta, whether it's a city in another dimension that's above it, or a city that's under the ground that might also be in another dimension. Wow. And then a voice told me, said, look, go to a hotel and get a good night's rest, and then the rest of your trip here will go fine, which basically it did, because then I felt, well, I got to go see this woman who was kind of a channel for Ascended Masters, and then another young man came in, and she connected me with him, and they had like a bus, and they were in the area, and I stayed with them. And then when it was time for me to leave, I found a couple that needed to leave, and we hitchhiked all together, and I went back to San Francisco where I was staying before that. But the reason I bring this up is because from that first trip, there was, whether they took me out of my body or something, or I don't know, but I know that I had a contact with some intelligent beings linked to that mountain. And then in this book, Telos, where this lady's getting direct communication, they explain exactly why they're not making contact with us. And basically what they're saying is that the people who choose to be on the surface of the Earth in the third dimensional reality, they are choosing to be in kind of like this reality for the specific lessons that we learn. Like, we have good and evil here. We have our emotions. Sometimes we're joyful and happy,
Mm-hmm.
other times we're unhappy, we're depressed, we're angry. But this is part of this classroom in God's infinite universe. And according to the people in Telos, the city under Mount Shasta, they used to live on the surface. And they said that when they lived during the time of Lemuria, things were a lot different than they are now on the surface. That there's been a lot of contact with some extraterrestrials who are not here for our highest good,
Mm-hmm.
that have tried to take advantage of us, and all kinds of scenarios that have gone on. And so what happens is this Earth, the way that it is on the surface, provides for all of us specific lessons that if an advanced race such as themselves with great technology came in, they could solve every problem that exists in
Right,
humanity.
but we got to have the choice.
Right, we have to have the choice. Now,
That's a very common theme with UFO abductees and contactees.
Right.
It's almost always the same, and it's the same with 2012 prophecy. They talk about we have a chance to make a switch to an elevated consciousness, things like that. I mean, a lot of those stories and themes are coming up from different areas, and they all seem to have the same message.
Right, but I believe that starting now in 2012, because I have felt, and again, I don't know how to prove this, it's a feeling I have, that there has been some type of shift on a vibrational level, probably where the planet, at least on the surface, the reality we know, is getting a faster and faster vibration. So how this affects people is people who, let's say, have challenges in their life, whether it's anger or confusion or, situations that are bothering them.
Right. You got to address that now.
Right. Well, that's what's happening is the vibrational frequency is getting higher and higher. Whether you want to or not, it's going to come up.
I definitely see that on the internet. There's a changing of philosophies, like the philosophy of sharing is kind of overtaking the old capitalistic model. The Occupy movement was a big part of going after the richest of the rich and having more for everybody. And that is kind of in line with the ideas of the New Age movement. And it's very funny that we kind of seem to be living that storyline. Although we are halfway through 2012 and things better get serious because, we don't have a lot of time left. And if this election is just left up to Obama and Romney, that just seems like the same old thing. I'm going to be pretty disappointed because 2012 is supposed to be a spectacle.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see a 9/11 that's a positive 9/11.
Whoa. Oh.
Okay, and I give you a couple of possibilities of what this could be. One of the things that we're looking at is we're interviewing with mediums because I would like to have conversation with some of the beings that are in the other dimensions. Now, I think from all of the UFO activity that we've had, I think it's pretty difficult to try to totally disprove that every single case that's ever happened, that every single person who's ever had an experience is all fantasy. There's obviously a contact that's going on, but I think the extraterrestrials, the more positive ones, have the same challenge like in Star Trek, like we just talked about. Well, if we have these advanced beings that are living under the ground in these cities or in the hollow earth, why don't they make contact? They have to be really careful because there is a destiny that humanity has. And, it's like if the extraterrestrials go too far, the inner earth goes too far, then it impacts our individual and collective spiritual evolution that we're going through. Now, coming back to the mediums, now with the mediums, what the trance mediums have helped us is these are special individuals who have a spiritual gift that they act as a communication portal. It would be the same thing, for example, you're listening to the radio, right? Well, you cannot hear with your human ears those radio waves unless you have a radio device that can link into it and then play it for you.
Right.
So the medium is the same. Most of us cannot, clearly hear spirit, although there is one thing that's quite interesting. I met with a woman who is a guardian of a crystal skull, and her father was, I guess, very high up in the early days when television came out and radio. And she told me point blank, she said, there are certain channels, certain frequencies that they will never, ever allow a radio signal or a television signal to be on because spirits are talking on those channels.
Right.
Now, one of the things that has happened around mediums, and there's two different types of mediums now. There's mediums who use what's called ectoplasm, which is kind of a white, milky substance that comes out of their orifices.
I know about ectoplasm.
Right, okay, so it's some liquid-type substance that comes from the energy of the physical body that the spirits can work with a medium to have it come out, and then they could physically manifest in the room.
Whoa.
So there have been cases where this has happened. We have a friend here in the Seattle area. He uses ectoplasm. Now get this. Through him, 2 crystal skulls have apported.
Manifested? Are you talking about just like, wow.
Through his, let's see, the one we have.
Did this get recorded?
Well, the apports of the skulls was not recorded, but he has been recorded where other objects are coming out.
Really?
Okay?
Does he have like a YouTube channel or anything?
Yeah. There was one time where he apported 1,500 objects. Most were small gemstones, but they were recording it, and part of it is on YouTube. Are
you kidding me?
No.
What would someone search to find that?
To find it, you would have to look under the name of the medium. His name is Michael Shane. That's Shane. Mychael, and Shane is Shane.
I gotta look that up.
Look under Michael Shane. So anyway, we were there at a seance. So he's in a curtain. I wasn't planning to go, but then he got a message, he said, from the Council of Crystal Skulls. We had to be there. So then, I was just kind of minding my own business, and I kind of saw a vision in my mind. I saw a little skull coming out of his mouth, because that's where a lot of the objects come. They come from his mouth. There's an energy vortex behind his tongue that forms, and these objects come out. And I thought,
oh my God.
Wishful thinking, this is never going to happen.
That's a little out there.
And then I was there, and I watched him, and one of the first objects was a crystal skull. What is it made out of? Let me look at the skull here.
Oh, my God.
Opalite. So this isn't quartz. It's a blue color. Now, he was channeling Krishna. So it's kind of interesting. The skull took on this kind of like greenish light blue color, which is supposedly what Krishna's skin looked like. And then opalite has this like red color inside of it that shines, and it's there. But this skull looks a little bit like a monkey skull, but it's a really tiny one.
Wow.
I'd say like maybe half a pound.
This is so
came
crazy.
Out, and we knew who it was for. And then one time he was in his bedroom a couple of months later, and a vortex opened above him, and a clear quartz skull, looking a little more like the skulls that we see, came through. That one, I think, was like about 7 or 8 pounds, so that was a pretty big skull. He called it Ashtar, but he claims it came from the planet Clarion, that it was in the water, and it teleported itself to come here.
Wow. So, Josh, this is crazy. You're very calm about this stuff.
Well, because I saw the skull.
Yeah, so, but I mean, if I saw something come out of somebody's mouth, but let me ask you this, because I've heard you say you're an Aries before, and I'm also an Aries, and I'm not a very spiritual person. I try to be open to things like meditation and energy healing and channeling, telepathy and all that. But I've been told that I haven't been able to measure any effects of that because I'm an Aries. So let me ask you, how would you recommend someone like me? Because I would love more than anything to have like a contactee experience, but I just, I don't know how you would manifest something like that, but if you seem to have tons of experiences, how would someone go about having a spiritual experience if they're not very sensitive to this or skeptical in any way?
Well, let's focus on my Aries brother first, because you'll relate exactly to what I'm going to tell you. The problem or challenge, let's say, of being an Aries is we do everything fast. Okay?
True.
So therefore, my challenge is that I'm going to be involved in many different things at the same time. However, my gift from another time, I think, is that whatever I'm working on, I'm completely focused on it and I'm oblivious to everything else. But the key is you have to just be focused on one thing at a time.
Right.
Now, the next thing as Aries is that you're going to be thinking about things a lot, and you're going to want to understand everything, okay? And you're going to challenge people. That's another thing we do. If we don't buy something, we don't even think about that. What we're going to say is going to bother somebody. We're just going to speak it and say, hey, I don't agree with you, or I want to challenge you, or because it's that fire. That's what Aries is about. It's we're fire sign, okay? So this is the major challenge that you have. You have to find a way to either just focus on only one thing and only be thinking about that, and not let your mind skip around to 10 or 20 or 30 different things in a manner of
tough. Very
right.
tough.
So if you cannot do that, you cannot meditate.
That's true.
Okay?
I can't do it.
Because your logical mind is going to say, look, I don't want you to be able to meditate because I don't want you to have these gifts. I want you to be just the way you are. That's your conscious mind or your ego thinking. But your spiritual part, which I believe we all have, is thinking, I got to find a way to come out so I can help him. So the key is you have to only focus on one thing. When you do that, and you'll be able to meditate.
And then comes everything else.
And then will come everything else. Now, I forgot to tell you another story about apportation.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so we're working with Michael Shane, and we just received this beautiful crystal skull from a master carver in China. It looks almost exactly like a human bone skull. And what the idea is for him to hold the skull, and now this is the next part, which you may have a little bit of a problem with me on this, is we believe that there is a living consciousness that works through the skulls that communicate telepathically. So this is what was happening to him. We already have had communication with this particular skull. We call it Rosalita. This is the name that came up 3 times even before we received this skull. Made out of rose quartz, Rosalita is roses in Spanish.
I mean, I'm open to the idea of all the, to all that. I mean, I'm totally, there's so many stories about paranormal and psychic and crazy stuff like that there's got to be something to it. But I just want to have a personal experience. Now, if I could see a guy manifest a skull out of his mouth during meditation or through some type of ectoplasm goo, like that to me would be pretty damn validating. You know what I mean? It wouldn't matter if I could meditate or not. Well,
I guess you just need to find a transphysical medium who's as close as possible to you that has objects that apport. Now, each medium has different things that happen. I mean, it could come from the air, as that happened with the skull experiment. Objects were apporting from the air and falling on their table, and with Michael, it was coming through his mouth. Anyway, getting back to the story. So Rosalita is there. There are people watching. I remember my partner Katrina has put Rosalita right in front of Michael. Nobody's come up. And then as Michael is giving these messages through Rosalita for the people, and he says, Joshua, I need for you to kneel in front of Rosalita. She has a gift for you. And I go, what is he talking about? A gift? Some energy? What could it be? And then I happen to notice that in her left eye is an object. And I'm thinking, well, logically, probably somebody took a gemstone and put it in her eye, but there was no one who approached the skull after Katrina put it down, and there was nothing in that eye prior to that. So I went to pick up this object, and it was a 17-faceted quartz gem that had appeared in her eye. Now, I didn't know at the time what the material was, but I found it very interesting because my number that follows me everywhere is 17, and it had 17 facets. Like I'm born on April 17th. Okay.
Nice.
So everything always comes up. So I went to a store and I said, what is this material? Not explaining, of course, to them where I got it from, because they wouldn't have believed me anyway. And they looked at the density of the stone. They went into a book, and based on the weight and the size, which is the density, said this falls in the range of quartz. We believe this is quartz. So this is another object that apported around, linked to the crystal skulls and working with the mediums. Now, The thing about it is like you said for yourself, I don't expect that everyone that's going to listen to all the things I'm talking about, they're going to agree. The way that I look at what I do is I'm just a share of information, but I'm trying to share the information that I intuitively feel is as close to the truth as possible, or to help people to think about things, to expand their horizons. That may be like in, your case where, oh, this sounds interesting, then it's going to cause you to have your own experience. Because when you have your own experience, this is not something that anyone can take from you.
Right.
Okay, like, when somebody sees a UFO, other people could say, no, I don't believe you or whatever, but, for that person, they saw it. That was their experience.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a story where you took a crystal skull to some crop circles, correct?
Yes.
And what happened? Did something happen there that was different that you didn't expect to happen?
Yeah, we were trying to measure the change in the energies caused by the skulls being present. Okay, so there was one we went to, it had a yin-yang pattern to it. So I went back another time. Now the crystal skull I brought with me was called Portal de Luz, Portal of Light, which is a 10-pound smoky quartz skull made by a Brazilian carver in 1998, I think, or 1999. So I went there and was exposing the crystal skull to the energy, but I didn't really try to do anything. But the crystal skull, again, I told you, the skulls have some living consciousness. He called me Dad. He said, Dad, the next time you go to a crop circle, I want you to meditate with my favorite music, which is Pachelbel's Canon in D, which is a Baroque
na, 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 na.
Exactly. So that's the music he likes.
Oh, I know.
I said, okay. So, I had a portable CD player and headphones, and so that's no problem to do that. So then we met a crop circle researcher, and he brought with him a device that was sensitive to the electromagnetic frequency. So what he did is he started measuring the energy in the crop circle. Wherever there was part of the pattern of the crop circle, then the electromagnetic meter would go above 0. And where there was nothing, there was no pattern made, it's just the regular crops, then
right.
It would be at 0. So we decided to do a test at the center of the crop circle. So first we went there and we measured the energy, and it was 0.
Okay.
Then I took the crystal skull and I placed them in the center to see if the crystal skull could change that reading from 0. Well, the first thing that happens is myself and 2 other people, this crop circle researcher and another friend, we watch inside of the crystal skull, looks like a spiraling energy, spiraling up and out and then spiraling back almost instantaneously.
Whoa.
So the skull was trying to explain why the energy there is 0. It's because the energy is spiraling up and back very quickly, so it negates itself at 0. So then we put the skull in there for a period of time, took it out, and didn't make any difference. So then I said, well, Portal de Luz said I got to meditate with his favorite music first before we do this test. So I put my headphones on. Everybody left me alone. I'm near the center of the circle. I have a picture from this time, and I'm meditating. And the first thing that happens to me is I start to feel myself surrounded by a cone of energy. Then my eyelids start fluttering very fast, and I cannot stop them. This is how I'm responding to the energy that's around me.
Wow.
And then I tried to sing with Pachelbel's Canon, and I thought for sure I was singing in perfect key, and nobody knew what song I was singing. So it's not, I'm a musician, so I should be able to carry a tune, especially a song that I know quite well.
You were in like a trance or something, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. So anyway, there was all energy around me and everything. And then we put the skull into the center after doing that, and we took it out, and it was off the scale. Wow. So it could be that maybe nothing happened with the skull because, a human being working with a crystal skull will bring it to life. Now, the crystal skull may not always be active. This is a question people ask. They say, wow, you got all these skulls in your house. Usually we have, like 30 or 40 because we have 16 that are we call them our crystal kids that have adopted us. And then we usually have other ones that we get from Brazilian or Chinese carvers that are available, for people if they're interested to get their own. And I never say about selling. They're looking for their homes. That's the way I describe it.
How easy is it for you to communicate with these skulls?
Well, everybody has their own way. Like, for example, with Katrina, she actually hears a distinct voice speaking to her.
Katrina is your partner in crime, right?
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
And for me, when the skulls are talking, it's in my thinking voice. Like when I read, I can't just look at the words. I have to hear in my head the words. Okay, this is just the way it works for me. So I think that the intelligence in the skulls recognize that this is the way how I receive communication. It's kind of an intuition, an inner voice, but it's the thinking voice. So they use that, and that's how they talk to me. So that's how I heard Portal de Luz, is in my head. It's something I'm hearing in my thinking voice, but I'm not thinking that, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Does this happen all the time or at random intervals?
Well, if you're actually going to, meditate with the crystal skull, then there's a likelihood. And it depends, because some of our skulls are more talkative than others. There are some I meditate with where I don't hear anything, but I feel the energy. Okay? And with Portal de Luz, sometimes he will talk with me. Or what he's told me, that's what he's saying now, is he says sometimes the voice I hear isn't his. He's stepping aside because he's kind of like a dimensional door, and he's allowing, if there's some other spirits or something that want to speak to us.
Now, would we be able to communicate with the skull, or is it something that takes some time and preparation?
Well, if you wanted me to work with one of our skulls here, I could sit with it and see if it has a message for your listeners.
See if it does. I'm curious.
Okay, so I got to see which one wants to talk with me.
See if one is drawn.
Yeah, there is. Okay, so first I'll have to introduce the skull.
Of course.
The skull that originally I thought Portal de Luz, because he's usually like, the movie, TV, media skull. So he always likes that. But sometimes some of the other skulls say, well, Portal's had his chance all the time, Dad. I want to try now. So the skull that I selected is called Heavenly Mother, or Pachamama, which is
Pachamama,
which is from Peru. They call the Mother Earth Pachamama. So Heavenly Mother or Pachamama. These are the two names the skull has. It's a little tiny rose quartz skull. The carver, I know, his name is Leandro da Silva. He's Brazilian, so it means the quartz was mined in Brazil, probably in the state of Minas Gerais, where they have a lot of crystal. And there's a very powerful energy, because I went to meet Leandro da Silva in his shop, and as soon as I entered that state, I was overwhelmed by a very strong energy. So this skull, in general, gives a message. Oh, yeah, I already hear what she wants to say. Gives a message about and peace and harmony. So first thing she said is, Dad, you forgot to mention about the World Peace Meditation that's going to be held and is held on the 13th of each month at the 13th hour. So that's either 1 o'clock for, people in the United States, or 1300. There are some people that work with a 24-hour clock, like in Europe or South America. So Friday the 13th, it just works out that way.
Oh, man.
At 1 o'clock, the local time, we're going to be doing a meditation with people all over the world. So this was the first message she wanted. So what I suggest to people listening to the show is try to contact us to get the link to this webpage for the meditation. It is listed on our webpage. There's a link to it, crystalskullexplorers.com.
Okay.
It's our main website, crystalskullexplorers.com. They can find it, or crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com is our email. Either way, they can write to us. So this was the first message she reminded, because the key to the meditation that we do is about sending out a very peaceful, harmonious, and loving energy to our entire planet.
Okay.
So there's kind of like a visualization that we do. Working with the skulls amplify that energy. Let's see what other message Heavenly Mother might have.
Pachamama.
Well, yeah. Well, Heavenly Mother said that I should share what I'm reading from the Telos book about how humanity will be in the future, how we will treat each other, how we will live together, because that's all based on the vibration of love.
Is this a 2012 kind of thing, like a December-ish thing, or is there a timeline for this?
I cannot give you a timeline. The only thing that I know for a fact is that by December 21st, 2012, our planet's still here. It's not going to be destroyed.
Right.
We're not going to see what we saw in the movie 2012 like that.
Of course.
However, there is a clue, perhaps, what may happen that again comes through this other medium we work with here, Teresa. One of her, I think it was her ET guide, said that by 2015, so that means we'll be going past 2012, there's going to be two Earths. One Earth is going to be in the fifth dimension. The Earth in the fifth dimension is going to have total peace and harmony. There's not going to be any wars, any hunger. There won't be any money. People will literally be living a very harmonious life with freedom and treating each other with mutual respect, working together for the benefit of all. But there still will exist a third dimensional Earth. And the type of scenarios that we have going on now, the people that will still be there will have to go through that. So that's basically what she said. But that's not the message of Heavenly Mother. Heavenly Mother says the following. She says, if we stop trying to force another person to agree with the way we think they should be and they should live, there would be peace. In other words,
Agreed.
In other words, if we stop saying, look, I'm Jewish and you should be Jewish, or I'm Christian, you should be Christian, or I'm Wicca and you should be Wicca. No, you have the free will to decide whatever it is that works for you.
Amen.
As long as you're not intentionally trying to harm someone else, there's no problem with it. Go out and live your life. Explore, because there's amazing things on the earth that we have here to explore. So she's kind of reminding me about this, that if we would stop trying to force our will on each other, then there would be total peace. Okay? Another concept that she's reminding me of, like a lot of people right now are struggling financially, although thank God the gas started coming down, which I have no idea why they did that. There must be some reason why they decided to do that. But anyway, we won't argue with our blessings.
They don't want to totally choke us out.
Well, some of us were thinking it would go to $5 in the U.S.
If we don't get to work, then they don't have their worker bees, and thus the system collapses. So they got to give us something,
Right. But anyway, here's the concept. If instead of each person saying, well, I have to have my car, I have to have my cell phone, I have to have my computer, I have to have this big house I live in, if we were to share the resources that we have collectively, no one would be without. That's the prosperity that exists in our world.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so the concept is, how do we do that? Well, the best way to start doing it is with friends and family is to say, look, let's just start sharing what we have collectively, and become a visible example of that. And then, it's kind of like the Wall Street movement. This came out of nowhere. I'm surprised.
That's true. In 2012, in 2012, it's very coincidental.
It came out of nowhere, and how many people all over the world decided to do that? So all it takes is someone to say, look, we're going to start, instead of a Wall Street, we're going to start this movement for sharing what we have with each other, helping each other. If you go like to Peru, where the people are very poor, do you know how they survive? They do exactly what I just said.
Right.
They help each other. They share, and they're happy.
And it is so funny that the people who have the most covet it and hold on to it, and the people who have the least, you usually do see them sharing,
Exactly.
It's weird how that works out.
Right. So this is the message that I'm inspired to share from this skull, Heavenly Mother, who is really, when people work with her, they feel a really loving, healing energy, but more from emotion.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Now, Josh, let me ask you, if I can Pachamama understand me or not? Will she hear me if I say something to her?
Yeah, she hears through me.
I don't know exactly how it works, but I would just like to ask Pachamama that if she can send some type of, spiritual entity to validate things for me or to make me have a weird experience, I would just love it. I would love to see a UFO. I would love to, be a contactee. I would love to have some type of experience that is out of this world. And if Pachamama could nudge that along, I would be so appreciative.
Okay, here's her answer. Everything that you need to have that experience, you have it right now.
That's a very Zen thing for her to say.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to expand on that because that will leave you hanging. There is a spirit that is around you who's talking with me right now. It's a masculine spirit.
Whoa.
And I don't know why, so I just go with it. It's a spirit who had an Earth lifetime during the period of time when we had the American Revolution. But he may not have been in the United States. I just see those clothes on him. Okay. This is your spirit guide. So what your spirit guide is saying is, I already gave you part before about the meditation, about focusing on one thing. He's going to be there because that's his job. His job is to help you. I mean, believe me, he's saying they know how much you want to have this experience. But there is something that has to change inside of you that's blocking this. It's like there's a war that's going on. It's the war between the logical part and the intuitive part. Okay? The logical part is saying, no way am I going to allow this person to have this experience. All right? Now, the way you get beyond it is you got to go with that meditation I told you about.
Right.
Even if it's 5 minutes, this is the way it works. I remember when I first started meditation, I went to some Eastern center in Chicago. I don't even remember the name of the master. You're supposed to look at his picture and meditate. And I did it for a little while. But what happened is after I started to do it, then I guess from past life, the ability just came, and then I could do it without any problem. So it's like riding a bicycle. The first time you get on, you fall off. The second time you get on, maybe you ride it for 5 seconds and you fall off. You have to, you got to use your fire as an Aries, and you got to say the following. I am going to learn how to meditate, and nothing is going to stop me, and I'm going to keep doing the exercise until I can do it. And once you can do it, then your guide will be able to help you. If he was to bring you these experiences that you're asking for right now, it would be interfering in your spiritual evolution. You're trying to push it as an area. I want it now. I want it fast. But you're not willing to pay for it. What you have to pay for it is you got to meditate and only focus on one thing. That is such a simple thing and a simple concept, maybe not easy to do right away.
It's very tough.
It may not be easy to do, but it's simple. If you do it in the morning and you do it in the night and you do it for 1 month and you don't give up, you will see a difference. That's what your guide's saying.
This is so awesome.
You got to do it for 30 days.
I'll give it a shot. So this is awesome because I've never heard about any spirit guides, for me personally. Are you getting a name for the spirit guide?
I don't get names. I just get I see and I feel.
Gotcha.
So this is a person who lived during that period of time, where they had the 3-corner hats. So it could be any time from the early part of the 1700s to the later part of the 1700s or early 1800s. But there's something about the time frame of the American Revolution that seems to be what it's connected to.
Very crazy. Maybe this is a secular thing, and this is the new American Revolution.
Well, there's definitely is a revolution that's going on.
Hopefully it'll be a little bit bigger, a global revolution, but a revolution nonetheless. But, we've been going a while. It's about that time for me to bring this baby home, but I got to ask you, do you have any, outside of this meditation, do you have any other upcoming events?
Yes, on July 22nd, and again, they'll have to go contact us to find this.
CrystalSkullExplorers.com?
Yeah, but I think this particular one is on crystalskullexplorers.com/resources.htm. Howard Thomas Mary. It's on that page where we have our radio shows that we've done. We have a radio show we do ourselves called Unfolding of the Crystal Skulls and Other Mysteries. And then the other thing that we're hoping to do at the end of the year, because we have access to the online class, is to do a Crystal Skull conference online where you don't have to leave your house. And you can just see the people, see their skulls, listen to them talk.
That would be cool.
And then the other thing that we're doing this year is we're working on some books. But ebooks right now. So the next one will be called Journeys of the Crystal Skull Explorers, Travelogue Number 2, Search for the Blue Skull in Peru. But I don't know when it's going to be ready because I have some other projects that are taking all my time right now. And until we get some doors open there, I can't really go back to the book. But I would say by the end of August, that other one should be ready. So that's what we got coming up.
And you got the Facebook and Twitter links as well?
Yep. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. So, people pretty much can contact us any way that they want.
Look them up. Get yourself a crystal skull. Find one that's drawn to you, that you are drawn to, You
can help people with that, too.
Yeah. Well, any last words, Josh?
I would just say 2012, we haven't seen anything yet. There's going to be more stuff coming, but the key is to be yourself and working with other people. And that's how the world will come into a better light. Cooperation, co-creation, and listening to your intuition and go with your, what you're inspired to do.
Nice.
I think those are the keys.
Well, it's been a wild time. I loved every minute of it. Thanks again, my man. Here's to a positive shift in 2012. I'll see you in the next life. There it is, Higherside Chatters. You're all fucking amazing. If this is your first THC, welcome to the family. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just like everybody else. Here's Jason Newcomb to play us back to reality with Birth from the Mother Box EP. Good night.